The South Mountain Partnership works best as a collaborative network. So we represent over 60 organizations, educational institutions, nonprofits, businesses that are all working together to further a set of goals. And how we reached a particular set of goals for our next probably decade is through our State of the Region project. And this project was a first of its kind research project to identify metrics and health indicators in our region, and then eventually ended in recommendations on how, as a partnership, we can address them. But these recommendations weren't done in a vacuum, and they were meant for all of us to use them together. And so today, when we are meeting here, our hope is that what we'll show you is a way for the State of the Region research to highlight the work that you're doing.
I'm sure you and to get here to talk. Are you in contact with the van?
Excuse me, if you wouldn't mind muting. Looks like we have a mic going. Thanks, Katie. All right. So essentially what we're hoping is that this webinar today can help you understand how the State of the Region can reflect your projects and your organizational goals and can rise all boats together. So I've got a great group of people here to talk to you today. I'm joined by our director, Katie Hess. Katie also directs the South Mountain Partnership and Pennsylvania Landscape Conservation, as well as Lori Yeich, who is the Recreation Conservation Manager in DCNR, but specifically covers portions of the South Mountain region as a regional manager for DCNR. We're going to be talking specifically about the C2P2 DCNR grant today, but we're hoping that the advice that we demonstrate is applicable for all sorts of grants, and we're hoping that this can be the beginning of an opportunity for us to partner together. Katie will be going through our State of the Region final report and explaining kind of the navigational side of that, and then diving directly into how it can support your application. Lori will be also echoing the importance of partner plans in an application and talking generally about the Conservation Partnerships Program. And then we'll hopefully conclude around 12:30 in time for lots of questions and discussion as we're all hopefully putting together applications and looking forward to this year and next year of project. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Katie. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia, and thank you everyone for joining. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. And as Julia stated, this is our State of the Region project. She mentioned that it's the first of its kind in Pennsylvania, although it was modeled off of something out of Berks County through Berks Nature. They created a county report card. We were very inspired by that project and replicated it for our region, and then expanded it with mapping and the final report that we're going to be concentrating on today. And to round it out, really what it did was engage a lot of folks from a lot of industries related to public health and environmental health in coming together to map public health and environmental data and identify regional challenges and recommend actions to take to address those regional challenges. And it is ultimately made to be used as a strategic document that leads to more strategic decision making and I think anyone in the region can use it. A little bit about why we did this. We engaged our leadership committee, which is about 15 folks from throughout the region, and they come from a variety of walks of life, from historical societies and dealing with cultural resources to agricultural folks, natural resource folks, and outdoor recreation. And we saw this project as a way to work smarter together, not necessarily harder, but to really bring all of our work together so that all of our partners could see where they fit into making this region a better, stronger, higher quality of life type of place. You should know that a lot of public input also went into this document and into the findings. We did form a steering committee, many of which are from our leadership committee and also a lot of those folks are county planning, county planners from our various 4 counties. And we held a partner survey. We engaged attendees at meetings, hosted a tourism forum, and reached out to different industries to bring other subject matter advisors into the circle to inform what we were doing. And it was really great. It was a really great process. And this slide is of our very first meeting with each county planning office, because we thought, if we are going to undertake this massive thing, we need to make sure that the plan or whatever comes out of it is not just going to sit on a shelf. So we really depended on the county planning organizations in each county to tell us what was going to be valuable and how to create something that they would want to engage in over the next decade with us. And so I wanted to just briefly cover that there were 3 main deliverables as part of this project, and we're only going to really focus on the one that I've circled in red, the recommendations document, which is our final report. Just wanted to let you know that we do have mapping associated with this, and we do have that general public facing report card, and they're all part of this project, but we're asking you to really dig into this final report and recommendations document today. So this document, I'm not going to ask you to read all of it because it is large, but it does, for those who are interested, it does summarize the entire process that we used. It spells out at length each regional challenge, each action that should be taken, and some build out of how one would enact the recommendations. And so we're going to focus today on connecting you with chapters 5, 6, and 7, and then I'm going to show you specifically where we think it would be beneficial for you to incorporate that into your DCNR C2P2 application. So our final report does live on our website. We will also send it to you via email, but I wanted to show you how to get to it should you want to follow along today. It's on our website, southmountainpartnership.org, and if you highlight our work, state of the region is what we're talking about today, appears in the drop down. You can select that. Navigate to recommended actions, and that'll take you to download our final report and our action plan. And so our final report, chapter 5, talks about the regional challenges. And I'm going to now segue back to our PowerPoint because I've tried to summarize these for you. These are the 5 regional challenges that we think affect the region the most when we're talking about public health and environment and quality of life. And these are sustainable development, balancing growth and development by identifying places that may be most sensitive to development and prioritizing development in places that are not sensitive to development. Another challenge is water quality. We learned stats like over 40% of our surface water in the region is considered to be poor. I can't remember the exact term that we used in the report card, but that was a little bit shocking. We're losing resources across the board, farmland, woods and forests, places that are historic, and we're losing a lot of wildlife and habitat. And our public health is also suffering a bit. Indicators, and this was helped this discussion was helped along by our subject matter advisors from healthcare providers like Penn State Health, WellSpan. I think we may have also had a UPMC person inform this work as well along the way. And we do know that, our region is struggling with physical and mental health, and outdoor recreation has a part to play in that. And lastly, recreation. There are certain places throughout the region and certain segments of the population that lack enough access to outdoor recreation, or when they do have that access, the access is poorly maintained or is just not maintained over time. And so I'll go back. These regional challenges are things that you can speak to in the application that your project might help to address. For instance, if you are submitting for a trail project, you could, instead of just saying we're going to create or enrich a recreational asset, you could speak to this is also going to help address public health. If there are, planting buffers along the trail, maybe you want to talk about water quality, that you're going to help improve water quality in some way. Recommendations are under Chapter 6. And on our way to Chapter 6, in this document, if you want to read more about each regional challenge, there's all of this text that you could, mine for information for your application. So for each challenge, there's quite a bit of text that you can incorporate if you found it helpful. So Chapter 6 outlines a lot of recommendations, and I'm not going to list them all today, but essentially there is a table of, sorry that there was no way to link directly to this, but there's a table of about 60 to 70 recommended actions. And I'm pretty confident that no matter what type of application you are submitting, there is a recommended action that yours probably helps to address. So there are things related to, electric voltaic car charging stations, building more sidewalks, there's water, trails, there's things about climate change, tree planting, land use development tools. It really runs the gamut. And so we can dig into that another time, but know that that's there for you to read through whenever you want to really kind of convey to DCNR all the ways in which you will be helping to implement the State of the Region report through your project. And then lastly, I want to mention the South Mountain Partnership Action Plan. We've taken 5 of what we felt were the most appropriate recommendations out of that long list that I just showed you, and we adopted them. And that is really what is going to inform South Mountain Partnerships work and our strategic planning and decision making over the next decade and more, probably. So consider yourself, I guess, maybe lucky if your project closely aligns with the action plan, because this is really where South Mountain Partnership is going to be focusing our work. And if yours overlaps here, it's a really great way to show DCNR that you are very closely aligned with what your local conservation landscape is undertaking. So there's a better way to look at our action plan, and it's through this link on our website. This is in table form and does a decent job at summarizing the actions that we're taking on, who our at least initial partners will be, our next steps, the audience served, and the measurements and metrics that we are going to be gauging our progress and success by. So I'm really used to seeing people's faces and asking questions like, how many of you have, started an application or are submitting an application this year? But I'm going just to assume maybe like most of you, or at least half of you. So I went through the application that I fill out every year, or we fill out every year for our funding, and called out a few places where we think it would be most advantageous for you to include this information. And those are in criteria questions number 1, number 4, and then mentioning this plan in the project plan area of the application. So to demonstrate this, I set up an example application for you guys in the DCNR grant portal. And I haven't filled anything out. It's just the bare bones of what you see when you set it up. And this is the way that you navigate to criteria questions. It's under the project narrative section of the menu to the left, which is essentially an outline of the entire application. And when you click on criteria questions, this is where you are confronted with all of the questions and the field for you to input your answer. And so, like I said, criteria questions number 1 and 4, I think, are best suited for this information. So criteria question 1 asks you to briefly describe your project, the benefits, and the urgencies. And I think urgencies is especially great. It's a great way to include the State of the Region report, those regional challenges as articulated urgencies that need to be addressed in the region. So include the challenges, include ways that your project addresses that challenge or accomplishes the recommendation or the project action plan. And I think that would be a really great thing. And then for number 4, describe in detail how the public has been or will be engaged in the planning, design, or long-term maintenance. This is a little less strong of a place to incorporate it, but I still think you should make the effort. In addition to speaking to how your specific project will include the public, you can speak to how the State of the Region report included the public and included public feedback in identifying these challenges and needed actions. And then you can further come in and say, and my project does solve these challenges articulated by the public or by all of these types of partners. So you're serving them as well as folks that you already know and are already in your close circle of work for your project. And then lastly, the project plan section is definitely a no-brainer. This is where you want to add or add the State of the Region report as a plan that you will be that your project will be helping to accomplish. And although your organization and your project may not be mentioned in there, you can say, my project addresses this challenge, or my project addresses this recommendation, or implements this recommendation even. And we think that that would be a really strong way to align yourself with the State of the Region project. And you can specify the specific pages in the report, and you can paste a link to to it on our website or upload the form here as well. So coming back to the PowerPoint, I just wanted to include one example that's trail related. Let's say you are a trail group on the line here today and you want to try to talk about how you would put what I already said into action. So you would want to talk about the sustainable development, the public health, and the recreation regional issues, and that your project likely addresses some of those. And I pulled out a few trail related recommendations that you can speak to. Those recommendations include building more multi-use trails, on-road bicycle facilities, planning trails with habitat impacts in mind. If you're doing that, great. That's one you can align yourself with. And if you happen to be more on the land use development, land use decision-making side of things, there's even one about revising subdivision and land development ordinances to require park or trail space. And then lastly, obviously in our action plan, if you're a close partner of us, you already know that we've adopted starting up a regional trail coalition and expanding the region's trail system as like a true trail infrastructure. And Lori is going to be speaking about another example, but for water quality later on. And before I hand it over to Lori, we wanted to mention that you should also ask us for a letter of support as you submit your application to DCNR. We are very happy to provide letters of support, especially if you are speaking about state of the region and how you will be pushing it forward along with us. We want to know that you're doing that, and we want to help support that awesome work. And so if you do ask us for a letter of support, please make our lives a little bit easier by drafting a template letter, letting us know the deadline by which you need to have the letter in hand, and including details like specifically how does your project accomplish state of the region challenges or recommendations. And the more specific details you can provide to us, the better and the more meaningful that letter of support is when DCNR is reviewing your application. All right, now I'm going to hand it over to Lori. And Lori, you just tell me when you would like me to advance slides, and I will do that.
Okay, thank you. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and happy Friday. It certainly feels like March outside, but I see in the upper 60s next week. So woohoo, we're getting there. Anyway, and I had to put in my cone flowers there because even though I love winter, I really am missing the green and just had to see my flowers. Okay, well, my name is Lori Yeich. I'm with the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. And so, of course, is our friend Tyler, who's with Bureau of Forestry. He used to be with our Bureau, but then moved to the Bureau of Forestry. But in the Bureau of Recreation and Conservation, we assist communities, nonprofits, and stakeholders with meeting their recreation and conservation goals through our grant program and technical assistance. So my role for 26 years has been to assist communities in the South Central, North Central region. And we have 6 regional offices, and I serve the center part of the state in partnership with 2 other members of my team. Some of you who have you've met and worked with Lindsay Bear, and then another person in my North Central part of the region is Wes Farringer. So, okay, next slide. Okay, Katie, can you move it forward? There we go. Okay. So I'm going to go into the timeline a little bit later, but our grant portal is open now. So I put a link in the chat right there. It closes April 2nd at 4 p.m. So we're about a month, 4 weeks until the application is submitted. So we're very busy here. at DCN in the Bureau of Recreation Conservation in the regions, assisting communities with preparing their application. So what kind of projects do we fund? So we talk about planning, we fund site development plans, feasibility studies for indoor facilities. For example, I know we were talking about a nature center. Before we build, supply, or endeavor into funding a development project of building a new facility, we require that a feasibility study, a plan, is done beforehand. And that would entail hiring a consultant. We fund those plans. We also fund comprehensive park and rec plans. And some of these plans are applicable to what Katie was talking about earlier with the goals of the South Mountain Partnership and the State of Region recommendations. For example, in some of those plans, if a municipal plan, you want to figure out your land ordinances and your subdivision ordinances to make sure that those provide the rules and the opportunities for making connectivity in your community through trails, providing opportunities to connect open space, fee in lieu of, and mandatory land dedication, just really looking at that. So that was just a tie-in I thought of. We also, our most popular popular grant request comes in when folks want to rehab an existing or develop a new park. And this can range from soccer fields to the most popular one right now is pickleball, to swimming pools, to pavilions, to a loop in your park, smaller projects. We also have land acquisition projects. So if you want to preserve land for open space and protect sensitive habitats, or you want to have purchase land for active recreation or a community park, or you want to purchase land to develop a trail. This is our acquisition type of project. We fund, regarding trails, we fund the planning, construction, and rehab of trails. And that's probably our second most popular application. So when we think of trail projects in the South Mountain region, we're thinking of Cumberland Valley Rail Trail. We're thinking of the York Heritage Rail Trail, the South Mountain Trolley Trail, which folks at South Mountain Partnership have been working on very hard for many years to get that off the ground. And we had our first section funded last year. In our rivers conservation projects, we fund boat launches. So I'm going to talk about one that was just completed in Camp Hill Borough. We funded a boat launch to the Connettawinet in Seabrook Park, fishing access, and we also did some buffer restoration and stream restoration there. A big new program that we're really supporting is habitat conversion, and that comes in the form of tree planting, repairing forest buffers, lawns to meadows. So that would go towards the South Mountain Partnership recommendation for improving environmental health, improving habitats, making communities more resilient. And then we have statewide and regional training and partnerships is another type of project we fund. And so that's where regional partnerships such as South Mountain is a conservation landscape. We fund conservation landscapes throughout the Commonwealth. We fund statewide organizations that support our missions, such as We Conserve PA, which is a state organization to support conservancies in Pennsylvania, and also the Pennsylvania Recreation and Park Society supports recreation professional development. And it also, another one would be our heritage areas. And what's really fantastic about South Mountain is we have not only a conservation landscape in the area, we also have a national heritage area, Susquehanna National Heritage Area. All right, next slide. So the majority of our projects do require matching funds, and typically it's 50-50. We need secured matching funds at the time of the application. That can be a letter of commitment. If you do have matching funds, in order to be eligible, they cannot be allocated or utilized before you receive the grant contract until you're awarded. And I'm going to click it again, Katie, because then it brings up some other stuff. Yes, okay. So the types of match we accept are cash. Yeah, we accept most federal funds, state funds, so DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, DCED, Department of Community Economic Development, It's another one. Penvest, which is like a bank for municipalities. It's one we accept. PennDOT, we accept those funds as match, as cash match. Any kind of local funds. So if you're a municipality or a nonprofit would like to provide funding towards the project, we accept that. Non-cash, in some projects, it can be in-house labor. So let's say you're doing a playground project, the labor of the municipal workforce to dig the footer for the playground or spread the mulch, that can be used as non-cash match. Equipment use, donations of goods and services, and volunteers. However, not utilizing non-cash match does require a lot more oversight and more work on the administering the grant. Cash is always easier for everybody, but that's not going to say that we don't accept non-cash. It's just a little trickier to manage. All right, next slide. So how do we determine who gets funded? We have a system of criteria questions, which Katie touched upon earlier in her presentation. The applicant answers a series of criteria questions, and then a team reviews and ranks those, how the applicant answers those questions. There's points assigned to each one. And the way we determine who gets funding is whoever scores the highest. It's in rank order. The highest applications receive funding first until the funding is exhausted. Each criteria question has a level of points, and it's really important that you, do you mind if I just share my other screen? I have the criteria questions up and a little more detail. Is that okay? All right.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, do you see that? Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I pulled up the criteria questions are slightly different for each project type. So this would be different for acquisition. This would be different for planning or partnership, but development is our most popular project that we get. So this is all on our grant portal. And my recommendation for filling this out is to put it in a Word document first and copy and paste it into the grant portal. And also I recommend that you read each question thoroughly. And on the grant portal, there's a question mark. There's a blue question mark. You can see my cursor here. That's right here. And if you click on that, it'll help give you advice on how to answer the questions. This number one, it's worth the most points. So you want to have very comprehensive way of answering these questions. So when it says needs, you say the project needs are this and describe it. The benefits of the project are this. List it or put it in bullets. And the urgencies are, Katie talked about this and how to reference the State of the Union, the State of the Region plan, because in there in recommendations, certainly you will find one that applies to your project. And the urgencies really, people miss that in the application. I mean, Tyler can second that. When he reviewed the application, they often miss that. But remember, look at the questions within the question. And then also we have this access web map, and you can please reference that. There's a link, and basically we partner with the Trust for Public Land, and we would like you to look at that and see how your project, if it's connected within a 10-mile walk or a 10-minute walk or a 10-mile drive to the project. We want to prioritize projects where people don't have access to a local park, trail, or open space. So then we get into the question 2, which is green and sustainable practices. We want to assure that, as the State of the Union reflected, there is what's called impaired streams. So we want to make sure that are you incorporating green and sustainable principles or best management practices for stormwater, planting native species, not taking down trees to make a ball field, and you're supporting projects in the design and implementation that make communities more climate resilient and adapt to the impacts of climate change, which are in Pennsylvania heat and water flooding. Those are the two major impacts that we have. So if you're creating a park that has access to the Connettagwinnett Creek or another waterway, you're creating an opportunity for people to go to a place and cool down. And if you incorporate green stormwater infrastructure into repairing the streamside buffers or supporting implementing and improving the habitat of a floodplain restoration project, you are reducing the opportunities for flooding in that community. So there's a website that you can look at for more information on that. I'm going to speed up here because I want to get to questions. There's a link here that you can get information on. The next one is accessibility. We believe that accessibility, meaning the ADA standards for accessible design and access improvements, is very important to our grant program. So we want to make sure that you follow those guidelines here and make sure that you have handicapped parking spaces, you have walkways that link all the amenities in your park with an accessible trail system. And there's more information on here on the link. And then, as Katie said, number 4, you could use the State of the Region plan to look at how you incorporated public input into the planning and design of your project. And there's a public participation guide. We're looking for what advice or feedback did you receive on your project, and how do you plan to implement that feedback? And then number 5, this has to go with our Pennsylvania Outdoor Recreation Plan. It expired, but we have a brand new one that's coming out this year. And this plan, we have to do this plan every 5 years so that we receive federal land and water funding from the National Park Service, which is one of our funding sources, not our main funding sources. Luckily, our state funding, the Keystone Fund, is our main source of funding. So I will say that again with twinkle in my eye because you know what I'm talking about. So in this plan, there's a link here. It's very self-explanatory. You want to look at this plan just as we were talking about with the State of the Region plan, looking for opportunities to say, hey, our project will implement this recommendation. The same thing here. You want to look at this plan and the links to it on pages 85 through 91 and look at how your project implements recommendations of that plan. Okay, moving on. Yes, and then we want to make sure that if your project, and again, you want to reference in this one the access web map. And here, number 6, we want to make sure if we're investing in your project that it's going to be maintained. So what sort of partnership if you're a nonprofit managing a facility, what sort of plans do you have in place to maintain that facility? Are you partnering with another organization? If you have a trail group, if it's a trail project, how is that trail group working with local municipality or another entity to maintain that trail? We look at okay, if you're a municipality, do you have a maintenance plan for that park? How much are you spending in your budget for the maintenance of that park? Then finally, as Katie mentioned here in the project plans, we are looking for if your project is recommended in a priority in one of these plans. It can be a county plan, it can be a regional plan, it can be the State of the Region plan. We're looking for you to explain, hey, on page 8, the comprehensive plan for Cumberland County recommends this, this, and this. Our project will involve this, this, and this. Therefore, our project emulates what's recommended in the plan as a priority. So it goes over here. Here are some examples. So even this conservation landscape work plan, you can see, and that's, this is similar to what the State of the Region is doing. So project partners, and as Katie said, we certainly want you to utilize the South Mountain Partnership to help you have a project help you have a letter of support for your project. And other partners can include financial partners. So is anybody giving any money? You would need to have the amount of money in that letter. I see Katie got on the call. I think I need to wrap this up. So you kind of get the idea. Next slide. I'll quickly go over the timeline and yeah, I'll stop sharing. Okay, she's so smart. She brings it up so quickly. So our grants, so we're just gonna go back, pretend it's, yeah, here we go. Okay, so this is like a little video. We had a grant workshop in November. I put links to the videos in this application, and I can put it in the chat in a minute. Or maybe Tyler, I'll ask for Tyler to help me with that. He could put a link in the chat for our wonderful videos that we have on a YouTube channel. So anyway, we did the webinars. January, our grant program opened up, our grant portal opened up. The grant round closes April 2nd. Then after that, we review and rank. In fall, we typically announce if your project's been funded. If you're awarded funding, the grant contract typically begins January 1, and that'll be of 2026. And your project is not going to start really until summer, fall of 2026. Okay, next slide. So anyway, I did put the links here on here for the grant, our grant portal, and for our webinar. So
And if you're okay with it, we can share all of these slides with everyone here.
Yeah.
So you all can link via that.
And
as well.
I always add a funny, if people know me, I love to have a good time with presentations, because grants can be kind of dry. So if anybody watched Parks and Recreation, we love Leslie Knope. And, she has a good solution for budget issues. So anyway, thought I'd end with that. And thank you.
Thank you, Lori. And that is a fun way to end a presentation. All right.
Thank you, Tyler, for putting that up on the chat.